So welcome everyone. My name is Tor Sledge, and thank you so much for joining us in our webinar, Learn How to Extend S/4HANA while keeping the core clean using SAP BTP's AI-driven pro-code solutions. We've got a great agenda lined up for you today. In today's session, we're going to showcase how SAP BTP accelerates the S/4HANA innovations, leveraging the Tricentis test automation, and followed by some insights from our MIGO consulting team. In today's agenda, we're going to cover a couple of the following key topics. My colleague Friedbert Eberly will cover Keep the Core Clean with the Power of AI and Generative AI. Following Friedbert's session, we'll have my colleague Damien Johnson from Tricentis explore Tricentis' intelligent quality platform and how it accelerates the value delivery of BTP innovation in complex enterprise landscapes. And then finally, my two colleagues from MIGO Consulting, Sujit Kale and Trinath Pervali, will discover how to leverage the power of SAP BTP's AI Core and AI Launchpad services to create intelligent, scalable applications. To kick us off, we'll have the CEO and founder of MIGO Consulting, Seshu Maramreddy, will give us his words. Welcome. Before we do that, I just have a couple of housekeeping points. For us to be a little bit more interactive during the session, so we encourage you guys to, when I call upon you guys to ask some questions, you can either type your questions in the QA portion of the go-to platform that we're using, or you can unmute your line by and ask your question via audio. The first 5 people to ask an audio question, I have 5 SAP Integration Suite books to give away at the end of this webinar. At the end of the webinar, if you guys can just quickly note this QR code or the link itself, we'll provide the link in the chat as well. So for the first 10 people who complete the survey, I'll be sending you guys one of 10 copies SAP Data Intelligence ebook for your digital library. So we're eager to hear your feedback in our ongoing efforts to bring you higher quality webinars and great topics in the future. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Seshu Maramreddy, CEO and President at MIGO Consulting, to give us his words of welcome. Seshu?
Thank you, Toros. First of all, I would like to say thank you to everyone who attending the webinar. Welcome to webinar. My name is Seshu Maramreddy. I'm the founder and the CEO of MIGO Consulting. So before we talk about MIGO, I would like to say thank you to my partner, Friedbert from SAP, who is the director, BTP standpoint of view. And we also have a Damien Johnson to this group. He is the CTO of Tricentis. Thank you again. As MIGO name start, right, it's one of the SAP transaction code, MIGO transaction. That's how MIGO started back in 2013. So last 11 years, MIGO grown up around 500 employees. We are close to 5 locations, and our headquarters in Chicago, that is a part of Naperville. So with respect to our innovation and BTP technologies and Tricentis task automation, MIGO is always about innovation. So we started Tricentis task automation practice like last couple of years back. We also executed many quality intelligence automation with the various customers. We also see that a lot of ROI from the lot of customers, right? So that is also we also engaging with the BTP. So we executed more than 100 plus projects with various pharma companies and manufacturing. And we're still doing a lot of many innovation with all automation, BTP automation, business AI, and also Gen AI, clean core concept, many other things. So that being said, I'm handing over to Toros. Thank you again for attending the webinar. Toros, for you.
Thank you, Seshu. So I'd like to hand it over to my colleague Friedbert. He's going to be covering the SAP BTP and SAP Build Code, the value add for your S4 environment. Friedbert, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Seshu, for having me today. Glad to be here. So What we cover the next 25 minutes, we will speak about Clean Core and SAP BTP and SAP Build. So more or less, it all starts with the why. So we will cover why we are doing this whole exercise on Clean Core, why we are pushing BTP so much. So leads also directly to the what, and then I will show you somehow the one or other option how you can proceed that in real life, meaning here in the agenda you see the extensibility wizard, build code in general, or anything around Joule Studio, which is somehow brand new and very exciting for this year. Oops. Okay, I'm back here. So why Clean Core? So what problem are we trying to solve? While with the move to the cloud, I think most companies are trying to run standard software as much as possible, but every organization, you will still have your own unique needs for individualization, the standard process. And that's why you think about probably very easily about you would like to extend the existing standard process, but with confidence. You would like to start ahead of your competitors, and you would like to have the state-of-the-art software for your daily needs. And probably also you would only not think in silos, so department by department, but you would like to proceed overall in the solution what you like to have. Why Clean Core? Let's say a summary slide for the benefits. So you have very easy access to the innovation. Yeah? So if you go for the latest sub version, S/4HANA version, there are very fast upgrade cycles. So independent compared to the earlier on-premise versions where you had a huge effort in an upgrade, so it comes very fast. So each quarter, each month, yeah, you have very easily access to the innovation, the latest functionalities for your finance, for your HR, for your supply chain, whatever. Yeah. So meaning that next topic is it's very easy for you to the upgrade itself. Yeah. So and if it's easier, you're reducing automatically your total cost of ownership, which I think is a no-brainer in that case. Yeah. I think the bottom on the left, you see enhanced security. So I think that's in these days a very interesting and vital part. So it strengthens your data security because you're minimizing the service area for potential vulnerabilities. Yeah. With that, you also ensure that you will be compliant with your internal data protection and privacy regulations, which you have defined. You have overall, you have improved performance with your Clean Core process because you have also very simple data structure in place. So if you think back where you have a lot of duplicates within your system, I think also any master data management system, hopefully you can get rid of that. Probably it will not be fast, but if you simplify with your data structured, for sure, you could imagine that your performance itself will also be improved. Yeah, I think with that, keep that in mind. That's the interesting why we're doing this. What we offer to achieve that, I think that's a very interesting slide. It's, let's say, two major blocks. Here on the left-hand side, you see S/4HANA Cloud, which you as a customer has hopefully already in place. And on the right-hand side, we have our BTP platform, SAP Business Technology Platform. And you can now choose if you go for an extensibility. Either you do it on stack on S/4HANA or you do it side by side for your business needs. And then you can also see the differentiation between low code and pro code on the left-hand side. Yeah. So easily you could start on low code. Yeah. So the trigger usually comes from the business. Yeah. So you will not do that because of technology sake. Yeah. So only because of technology you will not win anything. Yeah, so you only will produce costs. But if your business user comes and says, okay, I would like to have an extension in the sales area, in the HR area, and let's do it. Maybe you can go for it, let's say for on stack extension. If it comes to, let's say, a bigger development project, probably you will go down to the bro code. You can also easily start on low code area and then enhance it later on with the bro code scenarios. Here you see also what's feasible with that, how you realize it with build code, build apps. Build code is for the pro code area, or brand new, we have now also the ABAP environment included in build code. Yeah. To combine both sides, we have available some pre-built content and templates. Come to that in a minute. And we have also our Joule Copilot. So Joule is our intelligent agent, yeah, for also available for developers, for code generating and all this kind of stuff. So with that, maybe another interesting slide you see here. BTP and combination of build will help you in achieving and staying on the clean core. So this is, let's say, the recommendation. Yeah, so keep your core clean, let S/4HANA as is, but go for any extension with BTP and build in your apps. So we have on top the Fusion development team. You see, let's say, 3 building blocks for build apps. We have build process automation and build work zone. And then brand new, we have now the ABAP environment included in build code. Internally, it was named the project Steampunk. I'm not sure whether the one or other has heard about that, but that's now really coming to life and is available in the system here. A layer below, we have our business AI capabilities coming with Joule. So this is a completely Gen AI-based development environment or co-pilot helping you in any tasks. Yeah, we will see later on in some examples, some demos for code generation, for solving and gathering any information for your needs to help your process speeding up. The pre-built solutions, a level below, I think round about 500, more than 500 are available for different line of businesses. You see here more than 120 for finance, more than 40 for HCM scenarios, 150 for supply chain. I think that's relevant for MyGo customers. And yeah, just have a look what's available here and then maybe adapt on the existing and also enhance it from there. And all connecting down to the existing S4 environment, independent, which kind of solution it might reflect, HR, finance, or whatever. So to sum it up, so build comes with 2 development models. So either ABAP Cloud or the Cloud Application Framework. You can decide between low code and no code. Make use of the pre-built content. Make use of Gen AI for your code generation. And then maybe this thing is really interesting. Go for build code with the CAP environment. Yeah, using the standard IDE as development tools. I think that might be relevant for new hires coming directly from university because they are familiar in coding in Java. And these kind of tools, yeah, and they are familiar with any IDE, so they are familiar with the web. And for the long-term existing internal developers, maybe you have it, them they will stay on the ABAP environment. They can use their know-how, their existing ABAP know-how, and enhance it also from there. And it's included in build code, and you can start right away. And so you have one a single point of truth for your development project within SAP Build Code. Either it's ABAP or either it's the Cloud Application Framework. So, so next one. So how do we achieve that? There's one interesting tool available. It's the so-called extensibility wizard. And you see, maybe you start from any business app in S4HANA. This is the picture on the left-hand side. So what you see here is a sales order view, and maybe your employee has now the wish that you need more granularity, yeah, for any details which is showing off in the standard. And you easily then speak with a developer. Yeah, usually not the business user itself will do that. I wouldn't recommend that. But together with the developer, easily start the extension wizard. And then you can decide whether you go on stack way or if you go the side-by-side extension way in build. Yeah, but the surface itself, it's the same. Yeah, you can choose. So maybe if it's only a very small extension, yeah, probably you will stay on stack. Yeah, and if you would like to build up a bigger extension, probably you will go for build, and you will create it over there. Yeah, so that's also our recommendation. So you cannot compare it with set tables from the on-prem version. So it's really a different approach of development what we are offering these days. And it's very fast in the extension creating. So you will see it in some screens here. So with build comes also AI. So we divide here between the three blocks, which you saw before. So we have app development and the extension wizard. We have workflow and automation, so process automation coming with build. We have digital workspaces, also a piece of build. And last not least, brand new, Joule Studio. Joule Studio combines everything between these developer artifacts with each other and also combines the S4HANA world. So last year, so when we introduced Build Code powered by Joule, now we continue to enhance Build Code with AI capabilities and more. Yeah. So what you see here is so in Build Code we support, as I said, the CAP model, Cloud Application Programming Model, supporting Fiori UI, Fiori UI 5. We support the mobile services coming with the SDKs, the MDKs, and also HANA native capabilities. Yeah. So what you see here now in the screen, yeah, so what the developer is doing, you see some entities, so it might be some tables, and you could also relate these tables with each other in somehow a WYSIWYG way. So it's a very intuitive kind of developing. And on the left-hand side, you see here automatic the AI code. The code will be generated by the AI model beyond. Yeah. And if you have any questions or as a developer and you do not want to have a look into your big books for the documentation, just ask Joule, and Joule will provide you then the answers and helping you developing and fine-tuning the code and giving you the results over there. Yeah, so that's it. How you're doing it in Build Code. So and one screen again because it's brand new and very exciting. So as we include now all ABAP coding and ABAP cloud projects, and this is then available here in the cloud lobby, which is here in the screen. Yeah, so easily search for the system and package, create that for the ADT, the ABAP development tools, and you create very easily your ABAP cloud project. And in the first view, you do not see whether it's the ABAP environment or it's the CAP environment. Yeah. So for the end user, it's completely independent. So he is not interested in what's beyond. And for developers, okay, if you go into the project itself, for sure, you see some more information, and you for sure you recognize easily which model was used. Okay. Then we have in the space of workflows automation, we have our so-called build process automation. For those of you who were familiar with that area, we have had a lot of workflows available. We had workflows in the ERP world available, in the system available. Then we acquired the one or other company, and maybe the one or other you heard was AppGyver. And this is based on AppGyver. Yeah? So you see here also the very intuitive way of creating the boxes and the process workflow itself. And you can easily then choose which direction it should go. Yes, no. In that case, you see here some approver details. You can choose on that it should be approved. You need an additional approver. And then this is the way how you create this kind of workflows. And again, if you need some help, in addition, you could always use Joule and helping you for the code generation itself, or only give you a hint how you would like to solve this. So now Joule Studio in build, maybe one example how this is looking like. You could also train Joule, yeah, for your own skills. And this is what you see here now in the screen. So this will soon be available, so beginning of 2025, that you can train Joule for your individual skills. And you can easily then integrate also an SAP and non-SAP system. What you see here in the screen is so you will create a ServiceNow ticket. Beginner was create a ServiceNow ticket, and then you say the start and the end, and the magic usually happens in between. And what should happen at the end? You should assist with Joule. This is the end user view. This is the result, and you use Joule for creating these kind of tickets. Yeah. So the surface is completely different. It's not so the blue screen of SAP anymore, but it's Joule. And so Joule and the workspaces from build. This is the new way of work, and you do not have to take care on what about ServiceNow or whatever. So Joule will be your interface you are interacting with. Yeah. Okay. So this was very fast about the overview of how we realize that with build. One last thing here is build work zone site. So you can use it for internal and external website. For analytics, what you see here, any complementary content, also non-SAP content you could provide here. And yeah, maybe that one is also interesting. So we have somehow also agentic Joule behavior, which we can offer beginning of next year. So there are many partners and customers who are interested in creating their own AI agent. And what we are thinking about is that we will offer this kind of support beginning then of next year. And you can also then train your Joule with the existing LLM system and proceed the result here. What you saw here now in the video was the handling of some dispute management. It was not sent the correct amount of products, and you had to fine tune and send out the correct invoice. And at the end, it was sent a new email automatically generated for sure. You can fine tune the email before you send it, but it's very, very fast forward. And yeah, I think you save a lot of time in this scenario. Okay, and maybe some words on yeah, real customers, some references. So we have here Trumpf in high-tech area. So Trumpf has implemented, built, and saved up to 60% an admin task by adopting low-code development tools. They built an app that boosts assembly efficiency. Yeah? So that was their goal. We have Geberit in the middle, also in Europe. They improved the quote quality using central ABAP test cockpit in BTP ABAP. So one of the first customers using that area. And they now, it was allowed them to analyze their custom ABAP code in central location. And the quality at the end, so you see here the scanning was 370,000 ABAP objects each day. They brought them to the next level. We have a Pillar as a customer for mobile start for their deskless workers. And they have plans to build for enhancement of their UI in general, and they have designed a site that provides 80% faster access to the most important business workloads. And now, last but not least, was with Mobile Start, we have now also the option that we could include Joule in Mobile Start. I think that's the next big thing. Maybe Pillar will also integrate. And last but not least, we have Chip One. Chip One is a display chip solution maker using build process automation, and they increased the automation rate in the lead to cash process. And so the order processing itself was reduced by 90% down to 5 minutes. Okay. With that, I think it was a fast forward, right? So the summary and key takeaway from my session. Yeah? So see again another video here in between, but for sure you should have a look into BTP and SAP build because this is the default extension platform. If you have any idea for your own extensions, just have a look on BTP build, what is available on the templates. And this is the next block, and have a look on how easy it is with the extension wizard to create your extension. Make use of Joule Studio, which is available, and yeah, it comes very seamlessly for the business users, and also maybe the business user gets more interested in sub build. You never know. Yeah, I think that was it from my side. Would like to thank you very much, and yeah, Merry Xmas, Merry
Yeah.
Christmas. It's too early now, no? So hand over to Taurus, right?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Friedbert. So if you guys have any questions for Friedbert, feel free to unmute your line and ask your question or type your question in the chat. I have one of 5 ebooks to give away on the SAP Integration Suite. So if you're interested, please do type your questions. I don't see any questions in the chat. So Friedbert, I do have a question that customers have asked me in some of the engagements I've had over the last couple of months. They've asked me, how do you handle the lack of reliability on LLMs in the AI space?
Okay, that's that's an interesting question. So, but I think maybe you know Philipp Herzig, our chief AI officer. So I think last week, so indeed he had an interview. I got to an interview with Fortune News in the US, and there was a discussion. Okay, if you do not have the reliability on your LLM, one LLM, even it's OpenAI or Google AI or whatever LLM is available, you have to train your LLM systems, yeah, and there might be neurosymbolic AI might be the next big thing. I can share. I think I have this information available. I can share it with you. You can provide it to the guys attending here. And
Mhm.
we created, so SAP created an own path for the ABAP programming language. Yeah, so for those of you who are familiar with ABAP, for sure it's not straightforward. Yeah, if you're coming from university learning Java or C++, it's completely different, or it's a little different. Yeah, for sure you understand it, but it's not self-explaining. And we learned not our LLM, but we learned an LLM, the ABAP programming language, and it increased from 80% to nearly 100%. Yeah, so that's what I heard internally at SAP. Yeah, so and maybe we can provide that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. I still don't see any questions. Please, guys, if you want to ask a question to Friedbert, this is the time to ask him an audio question or type your question in the Q&A portion. So there's one other question that customers have asked me over the last couple of months. With all the new announcements that's been happening with AI, one of the burning questions on their mind is S/4HANA kind of a dinosaur with no new capabilities?
Yeah,
What's your what's your take on that?
yeah, sure. That's also a good one. Yeah, so, but for sure the answer is no. Yeah, so the innovation cycle getting faster. I think I mentioned that in the beginning. Yeah, so um, if you go for S/4HANA, for sure it's not a dinosaur, but as said, the new functionalities for finance, for HR, for supply chain. Yeah, this is the main focus of S4. But for individualizing and for going for your own enhancement extension, yeah, then you have to think about, okay, left and right for your needs, you can adapt it with build code. That's the recommendation, the way to go. But for the standard functionalities, no, innovations are coming fast. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. I don't see any new questions coming in. So please, guys, if you want to ask a question to Friedbert, type your question in the Q&A portion. Thank you again, Friedbert. I'll share Friedbert's contact information as we move forward. Thanks again, Friedbert. I'd like to now introduce my colleague Damian Johnson from Tricentis. He'll be covering accelerating innovation delivery with simulation and test automation. Damian?
Hey, great. Thanks, everyone. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be primarily talking about, like you say, the API simulation functions. Overall, you probably understand that the Tricentis platform does full-blown automated testing itself as well, right? So I'm going to really lead in with the API side of things, which is relevant to what we just described and we saw. So firstly, if you look at it from the point of view of where, like I said, as I mentioned, coming in, it's what we call the simulation capability, meaning like making an API available in a simulated environment, but also a level of orchestration of the services. And that comes out into things like such as listening into the current API frameworks and learning from that, so you don't have to manually create those API instances. So let's just look at it in terms of an example. It's relevant to the work that we just saw coming, that I think, when we look at the clean core paradigm from SAP, how we might implement something like that. So as an example here, we're going to create a customized kind of like a Photoshop checkout process where you have, obviously we're going to be building this using BTP as a custom environment rather than leveraging some of the basic functionality that might be available in the CX. But as you can see, if you look at the business process that we're trying to support, there's always going to be aspects of interactions with back-end systems. In this case, like obviously like an S/4HANA inventory management scenario, where you're going to create an account that's going to be back into the SAP CX solutions. We're going to then go through the whole process of creating the actual billing records, etc., perhaps back into S/4HANA, and then obviously perhaps adding a storage scenario, right, where nowadays you can't actually buy any normal pictures. It's got to be digital pictures, so you're going to have a option for upselling into perhaps a web service for storage. And then finally, when you check out from your processes, it's going to update the process, checked out information into CX, and then do the shipping information back into S/4HANA. All of this normally orchestrated, and we would leverage what we just saw in the BTP build process, leveraging connectivity frameworks based on those API scenarios. Now, all of this, as I mentioned here, at the very minimum, you're in your actual SAP build environment and BTP, you're communicating with at least 3 systems over here. So how are you going to make sure that those systems are available every time the developer needs them? How are you going to keep making sure that those AWS activities, the ability to provision a service and get the right information back, that's where everything becomes slightly complicated now. So even from this scenario, what the Tricentis API simulation capabilities provides is we can virtualize and provide that external call so that your testing and your development processes can proceed without having that back-end CX platform or the S4 systems or the AWS systems and Microsoft systems, etc., right? None of those systems need to be necessarily available all the time. You can virtualize it if you can listen to an existing environment and learn from it and create the virtualized environment that way, or you can manually create the expected results, etc., directly within the simulation engine itself. So if you look at it from what I just described from the example, take it into the world of what does it mean from the point of view of what's happening in the back-end systems. So you saw the systems under test, i.e. what that's being developed by the BTP application that we just saw for now. And of course, the back-end systems is where we're going to be now making those calls out to those S4 engines, CX engines, and storage mechanisms or whatever. So basically at this point in time, what we have is the ability to kind of like virtualize that individual API call. We can customize what gets sent back. So it's not just the same WSDL or the JSON packet coming back. We can actually embed a business logic. And so I mentioned about orchestration. So we can say if the customer is already there, send back a notification saying, no, your customer record already exists. So we can actually embed business logic in the service response so that you can actually really test the actual logic without having that full-blown system at the back end. Now, in this example, you can see we're virtualizing 3 APIs. So fairly straightforward. You're probably thinking, Damien, I really don't need to virtualize 3 APIs if that's all I'm going to be playing with. But the reality is most of our customers and our environments, as everyone moves to this, the next generation platforms like S/4HANA Cloud and start leveraging cloud services from the likes of AWS, Azure, GCP, etc. And also, I would actually, to mention, I know we're talking about SAP, but even in a given SAP environment, there's lots of non-SAP stuff as well from the likes of, the Salesforces, etc. So this is the problem that we're looking at in terms of managing this, the call outs to all these different systems, managing from the point of view of, hey, there's dependency. Do I have that test tenant for that web service available? We're going to be also having to worry about version mismatches, right? Because I kind of like talk about this as all, these wonderful cloud innovations turn up. And Frederick mentioned this, the reason why most customers are going to a cloud delivery model is to take advantage of the automatic delivery of each version and each innovation cycle. We spoke about how one of the reasons for going to S/4HANA Cloud is the fact that SAP is now looking to deliver innovations in a faster cycle. And we would talk about clean core. That's the reason why we want our customers to be on clean core, because Guess what? When you're on a clean core, you don't have to customize. The reason why you don't have to customize as much is because you're getting more innovation being delivered with each release. And that's why, we leverage the kind of like the detached bimodal innovation and extension capabilities of the BTP platform to leverage that internal clean core inside S/4HANA. However, as I mentioned, when you're connecting multiple applications now, it becomes a little bit of an orchestration nightmare sometimes as well. As we move to those cloud delivered services from those multitude of other systems, how do we now actually make sure we have access, they're available, and they're the right versions, etc., right? Because remember, those cloud services are on their own individual timing and rollout strategies. So making sure everything works at the time that the developer wants to test everything. And remember, and when we're looking at the kind of shift left methodologies for development, we're going to test early and test frequently. So that itself causes an availability of those back-end services to be one of the problem areas. The other thing, as I just mentioned before, is the fact that when we look at all of the innovation cycles that we just talked about, leveraging BTP, you're probably going to be leveraging and creating applications that touch a multitude of other systems, generally being communications via those APIs that we just described. And you're going to be creating an application that orchestrates between all these different multitude environments, like I mentioned before, and managing different versions and all the endpoints that we just described. And this becomes kind of like, this is the reason why at the end of the day, it becomes a highly complex prospect for orchestrating all of those capabilities, the availability of those APIs, but also it becomes a cost basis as well. Because when we're looking at making use of these API-based frameworks, as more and more of our enterprise solutions and customers move to an API/event-driven architecture, what happens is that some of these costs go through the roof. I think everybody understands the concept of cloud costs. Everything sounds really good in terms of like a pay-as-you-use go, and it's like so easy. I'm only going to leverage capabilities and things that I need now, and I'm only going to use it when I need to use it. But if you look at it from I don't know, it's probably the same for yourselves. Like my streaming costs have now surpassed my traditional, what used to be my cable costs, because you tend to provision and have access to multitude of services. And what we're seeing now is that by leveraging virtualized services, it's becoming more cost effective for a lot of our customers, because they're shutting down environments that don't necessarily need to be available for everything. So as I mentioned before, if you've got if you've got multiple test environments being provisioned in your SAP Cloud ERP world, the ability to not have to ask for another one just to do a testing, because you're relying on perhaps a backend you want to simulate or take advantage of an old ECC environment without having to help provision a new system, when you know you can do the development up through to kind of like unit testing and integration testing using the API simulation. What that means is, obviously, from the benefits of what a Tricentis simulation gives you, it helps the overall development project by providing all of these benefits. And the fact is also, from the point of view we've seen, leveraging this simulation engine itself, we're providing more capabilities from testing the platform itself. One example was when we're looking at it from the point of view of the way that we pointed it to an SAP BTP service, actually, and we were leveraging it to test the policy aspects of the BTP service itself, or it could be from the S/4HANA service itself. What I mean by that is, like, if you've got policy controls already implemented or should be implemented that say, I'm only going to allow 15 calls per second, we were leveraging the simulation scenarios to mimic sending out and saying, no, I'm going to see if I can get 21 calls per second or whatever. So, and you can actually then say, make a call with these credentials. You can validate that the security credentials and security policies are also correct in that API scenario and the setup on the back-end services. So what, at the end of the day, when you look at it from a point of view of, what does it provide a actual development process itself? Um, Obviously, some simple points in terms of like the pain solved, like I say, but the most important thing I think about this is the fact that at the end of the day, the target use cases are to help provide a testing process for the apps that you're developing on BTP at a faster cycle without having to wait on the provisioning of all the myriad of other backend service calls. Then also, as I said, I think verifying the service places, service contract testing is a unintended. We found this out from my customer. It was an unintended capability because our systems were performant and it was sending back a response, in a performant environment. When they tried to test this in the live environment, it's a multiple hierarchy set of services. And what was happening is that the first service they were called was responding back with information, and then their app was failing. But the reason why this test kind of like highlighted the problem was in their live environment, what they had, the developers knew that this service call takes like 30 seconds. So they actually factored in, I'm going to send the call out immediately on step one, knowing it's actually going to take 30 seconds for it to come back. And then they started doing all the other things. So it actually detected a bad programming framework, because what had happened was the developers, knowing that the service initiation time was going to take 30 seconds, they actually called it out of step. So it's funny how things like that show up when you're looking at it using that simulated environments. All of this application scenarios that I just mentioned works hand in hand with our full-blown Tosca cloud delivery models. And one other thing to note is with that, in terms of when we look at it from a feature capabilities thing, is to say that, if I look at the overall, what we found from our findings when we did this service virtualization with both research here as well as our trial customers that have been using this, it really comes down to, as I said before, it's the ability to make available services that have a huge headache on the back end. And it's from a complexity scenario, dependency scenario, versioning scenario, and accessibility scenario. But also, one of the other things that we saw from this was a cost savings. As I mentioned before, not having to have a full-blown service provisioned and available for a testing cycle. Now, obviously, what we're not proposing that you're doing a full production UAT a testing cycle, a pre-prod test cycle against the virtualized environments. You generally would do it against the back-end systems just to validate. So you bring up things like I mentioned about performance, etc., in a live environment. But the end of the day, one of the other use cases that I want to highlight that we found out the ability. The question came up earlier on to Frederick regarding LLMs. So whether you're using, a traditional, just any old LLM in a more deterministic manner, like with Joule, right? Obviously, with Joule, you're leveraging the capabilities to bring back, that there shouldn't be a non-deterministic answer to who is my most profitable customer, etc. Right? So that's where the linkage of SAP Business AI into that framework comes in. But if you're going to ask other LLMs questions, etc., and you're getting back a fairly consistent response, well, while you're testing for the 3 known responses or the 4 known, whatever, 20 known responses, the cost of invoking all of those LLM model runtimes are now catching up to most developers and organizations. Individually, it's costing them a few cents, but what's happening now is across the landscape, across their organization, we're starting to see customers who've actually getting bills, from AWS and Microsoft and OpenAI of thousands of dollars per week as the invocations to those LLMs are hitting, thousands of initiations per hour, etc. When in fact, in a test environment, you don't need the fact that you need to be, calling out to that full-blown open AI. And what we've done with our capabilities is, in terms of, as I mentioned, being able to listen in onto those calls and then virtualize those calls, and then also having the ability to now customize the response based on the request. So not only can you say, how are you doing? And you can say, I'm doing fine, it's good morning. We can actually now, if you wanted to, that's a normal call to LLM, that's going to give you that response. But if you want to virtualize that, you can actually very simply virtualize the response and say, hey, based on the time frame that the response is coming in, you can say, and it seems to be a good day or a good evening, etc. Right? So you've got the flexibility to dictate what the response is. So you can simulate a business response as well as just a simple return request. What that means at the end of the day is, from overall, you're getting the ability to do that full testing process far earlier without the hindrance or the limitations of worrying about how much is this going to cost me, because I'm going to run 25 test cycles and I haven't even got to a prototype test case, a prototype application itself. So you're doing that whole shift, enabling that whole shift methodology by making sure that testing processes and capabilities are happening practically from day one, because we can virtualize by listening to your networks, we can virtualize those APIs that already exist out there. Now, again, as I mentioned, we just described this. I predominantly talked about it in the context of talking about just the virtualization of the APIs, etc. But obviously, to get the full benefit of what we're just talking about, the test automation comes in. So I'm fairly familiar, hopefully that most people are familiar with our Tricentis platform in terms of providing functional testing and performance testing capabilities as part of our platform, and also the ability to basically do end-to-end integration testing as well. So not only in that example that I mentioned before, right? If you look at it from the point of view of the app team might only be testing the fact that, hey, my app works because I'm making the calls. Well, guess what, though? The business process team wants to go validate, well, actually, did the SAP, in the SAP S/4HANA system, did the account get created correctly? And did the accounting really hit the SAP S4 system correctly once the order had been shipped? So that all this stuff on the outside of the blue, we can now also incorporate into the full standard testing regime of the Tricentis platform, so that what you have here is now the ability to validate and test the entire process, from the API calls, from the integration testing functions into those call-out subsystems, as well as that last component on the data integration and the test data management functions. Are we testing this whole process with valid data? So at the end of this, what happens is, from a point of delivery of the application that you just designed with build code, is the fact that we can validate that it works functionally, it works with the integration, and it also works with a performance scenario in terms of, like, as you run that out as a Fiori application, making sure that those endpoint application APIs are delivering a response effectively as part of the standard capability of the Tricentis platform. So with that, I know it's a fairly simple scenario. What I've done is I've also put into this links out for attendees to go and have a look at a webinar that describes what I went through in fairly more detail. Plus, you can actually get to a set of videos and YouTube videos that we've published out there, that you can actually see exactly what it takes to do what I've just gone through, from kind of installing the agent and creating a simulation API, and then deploying that, and then looking at how the runtime metrics of all of those comes through. So with that, Doris, I'm going to open it up for any questions or feedback. And like I said, I've got my information here. Feel free to connect with me, as well as obviously look at some of these videos for further insight.
Okay, thank you so much, Damien. I just want to extend an apology, first of all, before we get to the questions from Damien. This is a new platform, so I didn't see the questions coming in from my side. We will get to all of the questions. I saw a whole boatload of questions coming in for Friedbert. We will address all of those questions in the next couple of minutes. But there's a question in the chat for Damien from Manas. His question is: We have use cases where business users starts his tasks in UI5 app and then moves to the WebDynPro app to progress the task, and then finally validates the task in SAP GUI. Can such use cases be tested end to end via Tricentis?
Yes, it can. Absolutely. That's exactly what I was mentioning before. And not only is it just like I said, even if you were feeding in a CPQ and querying from Salesforce, we can do that as well. We support over 160 technologies in general, as well as those specific enterprise apps such as SAP, ECC, S4HANA, as well as cloud, as well as the Workdays and Salesforces and Oracles of the world as well.
Okay. Yulia, are there any other questions in the chat for Damien?
No, that's it. I've shared some other questions in the chat, but
okay.
I think there are a couple more questions came for BTP. I think Yulia maybe.
Yeah.
No, I'll get to those in a second. There's just want to ask Damien a couple of other questions before we address all the other questions. Could the API simulation, also simulate calls to LLM like Opera AI, Joule, or Gemini?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I mentioned that briefly, but that is where we're seeing a huge, uptake in terms of the cost savings. Like I say, everybody thinks that the LLMs are so cheap, right? Everybody's like, I got a free chat GPT. But when you're doing it at an enterprise level for the likes of OpenAI and Gemini, et cetera, enterprise, these thousands of calls start, providing huge bills. And the fact that we can simulate that and also embed the business logic, because most of those business calls to those LLMs are expecting a certain type of response, right? It's not fully non-deterministic. So absolutely, it really lends itself to our ability to virtualize those calls and provide custom responses.
Okay. And then there's another one. You mentioned automated testing. Does that cover functional, integration, and performance all through the end-to-end? And how do you do all three?
Oh, that's I think we just had that question come through the chat itself as well. So, leveraging the Tricentis automated testing platform, absolutely. We support the UI5 frameworks as well as a framework for the SAP GUI, as well as just generic HTML and React front ends, as well as those non-SAP enterprise apps such as Workdays of the world or Salesforces of the world. So the beauty is, even as Frederick mentioned, looking at creating that custom application generally talks to multiple backend systems, right? Both SAP and non-SAP, and we can create a test case that mimics that step by step in that end-to-end process from the Tricentis world. And the other thing to note about that, anyone that's familiar with Tricentis, as you create those test assets in that Tosca world, those same test assets can be used to leverage and do a performance test scenario as well. So it's like one set of development of those test cases and reuse of that in both the application functional testing, API testing, integration testing, and the performance testing frameworks.
Okay. So there is another one for you, Damien. Can you please give an example of an end-to-end test case? And is it SAP product or a third-party one?
So as I mentioned, right, so the example that we used there was like a web shop scenario, right? Creating a web shop application. It could be simple things such as you are actually creating I'll even make one up on the fly actually, if you want to use BTP to find a way of updating a material data inside SAP. So you've got a MES system that you're going to pick up spec sheets and data using the, you saw one of the examples was leveraging the document extraction information system. So if you've got a spec sheet that comes in as a PDF and it's not even an electronic, a PDF comes in, you can use the BTP app to extract the document information, formulate the formatting correctly, doing validations, and then calling perhaps an S/4HANA engine to update the master data record or the material record. And then what we can now do is you can do that test process by submitting virtual test PDFs into that application, and then tracking that whole process all the way through back into the SAP and S4, bringing up the S4 system and validating that the material record inside S4 has been updated correctly based on the data that came in the PDF. Because we now have the ability to, what you've now done there is validated the functional test of the application and done a validation of the functions inside S4, as well as I mentioned before, you're now also invoking what we have our test data integrity tool to say that the data that should have been input is 25 square feet, and did it go into the material master as 25 square feet, or is it coming in as 25 square meters, etc. Right? So you can do that whole process, and this is really the benefit of where BTP is obviously being geared towards. The fact is, it is the standard method in which you're going to now make the interactions happen into the rest of the enterprise as we develop all these applications. And the benefit of that is you get to now also do that end-to-end testing, because any of those systems, including mainframe, I mean, if anybody's invoking and getting any information out of a mainframe and leveraging copybooks, etc., Tricentis can actually test that and invoke a mainframe application and perform that full-blown test scenario.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Damien. I don't see any new questions. Please do keep your questions coming for Damien. Thank you again. We're just going to circle back and do some questions for Friedbert. So Friedbert, if you want to come online.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
So there's a question for Tom. So again, I do apologize that the first five individuals who did type their questions, we'll be sending you the ebook right after the session. So the first question is from Tom for you. Using standard workflow in S4, can AI interact with workflows, and how predictable are the results if it is capable?
Yeah, how predictable? So I think that's a difficult question. Yeah? So I would say, as usual, it depends. Yeah, but for sure you can use AI core, yeah, and integrate any existing workflow which is available, right?
Okay. Another one from Pavan. What are the benefits of adopting a clean core strategy? Which areas of an SAP system should be focused on for clean core implementation?
Okay, so usually if you go for an SAP system, independent whether it's an existing one, yeah, if you have an ECC system running or S4, even if it's cloud or on-premise version, yeah, you should go for a clean core strategy. Yeah, so if you have any extensions available already, okay, that's fine, leave as is. But if you plan further extensions, yeah, you should think about if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more are coming, go for the build sub BTP approach and do it over there. And let's say from time to time, maybe you can also get rid of the existing ones in your SAP system, right?
Okay. Another one from Harsha. How can we enable AI on S4 HANA for the two-tier public cloud system? And any detailed step-by-step processes? Are there any detailed step-by-step processes available?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we might not can include that here in the session, but there's one slide included in the deck, where you can make use of existing BAPI, so the classical APIs, which are available from the SAP system. Maybe you have a look on that. So it will be provided to you. Thomas, he will send it out. And maybe this might be a starter. So what classical APIs are available, and then bring it to the next tier 2, tier 3, and then create completely new objects, and you can start from right there.
Okay. And then another one from Mir. How do you ensure SAP BTP is compatible with older versions of the code?
Yeah. I'm not sure how to answer this one. So for sure, there's some limitations of complete old coding, which is not understood, but you have then to try to convert it to a new version. So I think this one is difficult to answer correctly, right?
Okay. Mir, if you're still on the line, just send me a text or an email, and then I'll get you I'll forward it on to Friedbert to give
Yeah.
you a more complete answer. The next one from Naga. Can you explain what is BTP integration suite role in this topic and how to incorporate it into it? I know this is a loaded question with it's too much to encapsulate in 30 seconds or so, but you want to give it a
Yeah.
try?
So yeah, integration suite for sure. It's a vital part of integration SAP non-SAP system. Yeah, so especially for data. Yeah, so and non-SAP data, there's a lot of adapters available. Yeah, and this will stay in place as a piece of BTP. It is also very relevant for I think for all customers all over the world, and yeah. You could see it, let's say you saw one slide which showed up the S/4HANA system with Cloud ERP, HR, Finance, Supply Chain, CX, and so on. And beyond that, you have the integration suite layer connecting anything, let's say, non-SAP data coming over there. And if it's coming to the topic of analytics, for example, probably then you think about DataSphere. Yeah? So if it comes to analytic data, DataSphere will be the single point of truth for analytic data, and integration suite might help to integrate non-SAP analytics data and bring it into DataSphere. Yeah.
Okay.
And Doris, I was going to say, I've kind of like we've come across that also as well, right? Examples being like even if you have an S/4HANA API, you're not going to put that available on the web, right? You're going to broker it and put the make CPI now functions as a middleware, right? Because there's no way that you just want to have the internet hitting your S/4HANA system directly. So it's that middleware functionality that's also inherent in that CPI integration suite capabilities as well. And as another thing, as I mentioned, like the policy scenarios, right? Because again, just because there's an API, you don't want to just be making it available for everybody to stuff, like a whole pipe of data down through into your S/4HANA system, especially when everybody's coming in on Monday morning, right? So you can provide the policies and controls as a middleware function, and that's why integration suite is really. When I talk to my customer, it's mandatory. Don't even, there's no optionality really for me, because unless you're not going to do those point-to-point connections, because it just is not flexible, and I would say it's also not the best security design as well.
Okay. Great. Thanks for that. The next question from Rohit. How can we do a clean core in an on-prem system, private cloud, and RISE? I know, again, this is a little loaded question.
Yeah, but
I don't know if
so I would say leave as is as now. Yeah? So do not change anything, because you only produce costs, and you do not get any value out of that. But think about if you have extensions next to that, what you have already available, then go for a build. Yeah? And you can also include the on-prem private cloud version, right?
Okay. And then another one from Gagandeep. What is the difference between ABAP instance on BTP and an ABAP on S/4HANA Cloud?
Yeah, so the ABAP instance on BTP, yeah, I think this we can neglect. So what you saw before was the ABAP model, which was presented in the build code area, but the ABAP instance itself stays on S/4HANA, right?
Okay. And then another one from Saras. We are an on-prem 2020 version. How can we leverage this?
Um, yeah, so what's meant with leverage this? So I
So,
think yes, I,
Sar
I,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah, Saras, I think you need a little bit more clarification. If you
yeah.
can send us a little bit more clarification on that, we'll forward it on to Friedbert and we'll get you that answer. Another one from Mattia. Will build code replace Business Application Studio?
Yeah, no, so BAS will still be in place. So it will be a coexistence of build code and Business Application Studio. Usually you will use BAS for real deep development. Yeah, so build code, let's say also from our marketing, is addressing the business user, coming together with the developer, with the administrator, and to realize the extension. But the BAS is yeah, focusing really the developer, right?
Okay. Um, and then what approach from one from Hussein, what approach would you suggest to move years of customization existing in S4 to be moved onto BTP? And what kind of customizations can sit on side-by-side extension?
Yeah, yeah. I think I said so. There were similar questions before. So I think in that case, probably the best case would be to speak also with a consultant on site, or maybe with Maiko, a consultant. Yeah? Um, that you really do not things which are not necessary. So only due to the sake of technology, it doesn't make sense at all. Yeah? Maybe you start in one area where you would like also to have more extensions and go for a supply chain, for example. Yeah, and then if you have there the need, yeah, for an additional extension, okay, then you can think about to get rid of any existing customization modification on S4, and you will also create that on BTP. That would be my recommendation as of now, but I think in detail it has to be evaluated by a consultant, right?
Yeah. Okay. And then another one from Rupal. Is there any innovation around security in SAP BTP?
I think that I have to double check that. Yeah, so maybe we can.
Okay. So Rupal, if you can send me a short email and I'll forward it on to Friedbert. Also, just want to let you guys know that we did post the contact, the emails for all of our presenters today. So Friedbert's email as well as Damien's email is in the chat. So you guys should all have that. So if you want to directly contact them and ask your questions to them, please feel free to do that. Let's go with one more question. I know there's a few others, but we have one last presentation to go. But let's just go one more question from Vasu. How is the SAP Copilot different from the Microsoft Copilot?
It's also a good one, yeah. So we have the competition with Microsoft, and years before we have had the duet approach, so everything included in Exchange in Outlook, yeah. Um, there's also one slide in the deck which I didn't show today, but also from a customer. So they have rolled out Teams, for example. They have a completely Microsoft-driven approach internally. They use Teams, they use Copilot from Microsoft. And for sure, in that case, you stay on the Microsoft Copilot. But if you're, let's say, more focusing on business data and developing on ABAP code, what you saw before on the screens, maybe it does make sense that you use SAP Joule, yeah, as our own SAP as Copilot. And yeah, there will also be a coexistence of both. Yeah, right.
Okay.
Just
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Friedbert. There's a couple of other questions, but we'll get to them if we have time at the end. Thank you again. I'd like to now introduce my two colleagues from MIGO, Sujit Kale, BTP Center of Excellence, and Trinath Puravali, Solution Architect at MIGO. They're going to be covering empowering intelligent business applications with SAP BTP AI Core and AI Launchpad. Take it away, guys. If you want to share your screen. Sujit, you're on
Charles,
mute.
can you confirm if you're able to see the screen? Charles, can you confirm?
No, I don't see your screen. Yeah, there's distortion coming in from you.
Okay.
I don't know if it's from yours, Sujit.
It's probably from me. Yeah, we can see a screen now. You can go ahead.
Yep, I can see your screen, but there's background distortion coming in. No, you're on mute, guys. You're on mute, Trinath.
Okay.
Okay. No, there's no background. It's good. Go ahead.
Sure. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Hi, everyone. So I think as Toros has introduced, we're going to talk about, how to empower intelligent business applications with, SAP BTP AI Core and Launchpad. The agenda for a quick short presentation will be, I'll quickly go over the business process, problem statement, then the process flow of what we have done, and then talk a little bit about architecture, and then, from the savings, benefits, and ROI, I'll speak to those statements. So problem statement. Okay. So this particular use case, the customer has reached out to us. This customer is particularly in the manufacturing industry where, they generate fiber optic cables. And then there is a certain process. There's a three-step process in that. I'll quickly go over to the process and then come back to the other stream. So this is a very high-level overview of the process, right? You call it, you have a raw material, which is called the glass reels. Then it goes through a buffering process. Then you make that into buffer tubes, which then will bind together into a stranding process. And then we'll bind those cores, and then we'll finish it as an optical fiber cable. So essentially three processes, right? And it's kind of hard to just get that out of the bat. So if you can just look out this diagram, the small colored ones, which have where my mouse cursor is, where there are very thin fibers in different colors, red, orange, yellow, those are the fiber reels. That's what, we do the buffering process and make this blue cable, this orange cable, etc. Then towards the stranding process, we kind of bind them together into this, you see this green shell, that's what it is. Then with the jacketing process, all you do is, just finish out the product, you wear a jacket on top of it, and then, ship it out to the customer. So that is, a very high level overview of what the process is. So the problem statement, coming back to it, was, when they're generating a buffer cable, there is a huge scrap which are being generated because they'll have to take almost 12 cables in most of the cases, around 6 to 12 fiber reels, and then sometimes the lengths differ from each buffer to one buffer, and then they'll end up anything less than 10,000 feet is a scrap to them. So essentially, if I'm saying, okay, hey, I'm left with 8,000 feet for 5 cables, is almost 35,000 feet of scrap. Similar thing applies to the stranding process as well, where this will be more costlier because you're binding 12 different fibers and then trying to have the stranding process. Even if you run out of cable, even for one cable, all the other 7 or 8 cables has to be left in scrap. And this is more costlier because generally you have 12 different buffer rails, and each of those buffer has 12 fibers in it. So essentially, you're scrapping out 144 fibers of that particular length. So that is causing a significant loss in terms of manufacturing revenue because they'll have to throw away a lot of scrap. So that's the use cases basically, and then I'll quickly go on. Okay, what's the process that you have done? So essentially, what you have done is it starts from manufacturing. Actually, I mean, in SAP there's something called MRP run and things like that, but this is more custom process. So we'll have to go with the custom way, right? So we have, there is two or three applications that we have built in order to solve this problem. One is the app receiving, the input files, meaning like for all the incoming inventory, we have built one application to make sure they have, clear visibility of what is coming through in the plant. And then finally we said, okay, we're going to leverage some of the capabilities of AI Core and AI Launchpad using some engines, and then we'll create a planning app to effectively plan all the incoming sales orders for this customer. So this is also one of the part of the applications. There is essentially, as I told, 3 applications that we designed. This one of the application, the blue ones which you see is their existing process. They have their existing process where they receive the file. The raw material is sitting in their warehouses, cages or trailers, and then there's a physical move to their shop floor. So we have introduced this new process wherein we quickly generated a lightweight UI application wherein the user will be able to leverage this RF gun, scan the pallet ID, and then upload it onto our BTP tables. We have created our BTP tables on the HANA DB, but this is the lightweight applications that we provided to kind of have more closer inventory and track of all the goods that are coming in. Okay, so I'll quickly jump onto the architecture. The way we have provided solution is, as I told, right? Okay, we'll plan your manufacturing orders. As I told, there is 3 different operations: buffering, stranding, and jacketing. Now, essentially, if I want to, tell in layman language, right? Now I'll have to plan buffering based on the available inventory. In the previous slide, I quickly ran over what is the solution we have developed to take the reels and then, finally put it in an inventory visibility where we have all the track. Now, using the first 2 applications, we have all the inventory that is available. Let's say they have 10,000 or reels sitting in the shop floor for today. So the manufacturer, whoever is doing the operation, right, the operations guy, he cannot really go to each of the big large warehouse and see, hey, which is probably the apt length to a particular sales order. So we provided some automation to develop this planning order application wherein, we said, hey, the input source of our planning application will be all the sales orders from our S/4HANA system. And then, we'll read the sales orders based on the length. We'll provide a big palette, which can give the optimal length for satisfying the sales order. So it's not a simple application, I would say. It's mostly like 5 to 8 screen navigation application. But I quickly want to go over the architecture, right, and how we leverage AI core services here. So essentially, this use case particularly, we're trying to get the data from S/4HANA, basically try and get all the sales orders, and we have developed a CAPM application, right? We've developed this workspace, and we have developed CAPM application. This is where it says, right, planning order application on using the UFI solution, and we have developed some backend Node.js services as well, and also the inventory app. These are the 2 components in this planning application. Now, the part where the AI core service comes is we have used some more existing standard models. We did some pre-training to them using the data available. We took almost 6 months to 1 year of data, to train the model. We mocked up some data, and we have created a model. Then we have leveraged the AI core service to implement that model, right? We deployed it on our AI core, And essentially, a Launchpad is mainly to consume those APIs, right? We created a workspace in order for the developers to be interacting. We leverage the Launchpad. So essentially, we have deployed our foundational models on the Azure. However, I think SAP, they've given it AWS because of this particular infrastructure of the client. We deployed our containers on the Azure, wherein we have deployed our AI core model. Okay. So this is, a particular high-level architecture on, I would say this is more like an L2 diagram, which calls for the key components. And then, we have developed a CAPM application, as I told, in order for it to contact the AI core. We have created a destination. It's pretty standard, on how to integrate with the AI core service. So this is where the push is done, to the using the destination server to the HANA DB as well. Essentially, all the inventory data is being taken from our HANA DB and then being passed from the CAPM application to the service which you have already trained. So it uses some intelligent algorithm to propose a more optimized and effective raw material to be used for satisfying that particular order. And once that is updated, there is an update sent back to S/4HANA system as well that, hey, this particular sales order is consumed. So we have developed like a whole bunch of HANA DB where we have we try to set up our inventory. We try to set up our available models where they kind of talk to the DB and get the more optimized version of it. So that is on the architecture. Getting into the ROI. Okay, what did we achieve? Again, the estimated cost savings is 1 to 3 million for this particular customer across 2 plans. There are more plans, so we initially wanted to roll out. The pilot was for these 2 plans. So we're targeting around 1 to 3 million. We are about to finish. I think we are pretty much done with the application. We are running a decent prod. We're expecting there will be around 1 to 3 million, and then we'll have a more specific number once we have it in the operations. There is some enhancements that we're trying to do on top of this, so I think that will bring in more and more cost savings. More than the cost savings, right? One of the biggest thing is there is visibility and tracking of all the inventory here. Okay, wherein there is a lot of truckloads which come. I think there are like 20 to 30 truckloads of inventory which comes in every day, and then we didn't have tracking. So with this solution, we were able to provide that as well, where they have a very clear interface using the BTP solution, and then they can quickly update and things like that. The final, I would say, one of the big winners not to call out, right? Like this is a seamless integration with SAP applications. They have a robust process. So this application is, as I told, is a pilot. It's going to be integrated with some other third-party integrations, wherein the software APIs and things like that will come in. That is where we'll try and use the BTP integration suite and things like that to get the full capability, right? In the moving forward days, we'll have full-blown integration with all the third-party systems to make it is end-to-end, automated. So that is, I think I've come to the end. One thing I want to highlight is we try to leverage, the 2 presentations which we talked about earlier. I think it somehow relates to both of them. We have leveraged, we brought this, there are several enhancements. We brought this out of our S4 to make it a pretty clean core. There are some enhancements also that we have taken part on this. And then there's a plan also to, leverage Tricentis for some of the, testing approaches, API failures and things like that. We are also trying to leverage Tricentis. So I think essentially we are trying to leverage all the 2 things that we have told. So, there's a pretty good, savings, solid use case to the customer as well. And this is architecture as well. I think I would say this is one of its kind and first of its kind in the cabling industry. Yeah. So I think I'm done, Toros.
Okay.
So yeah, happy to take any questions on this.
Thank you, Srinath. If you have any questions for Srinath or Sujit, please do type your question in the chat. I don't know if Yulia, if there's any questions for them. If you can just make me a presenter again, Yulia.
Yeah, presenter first.
Okay. So again, before we sign off, I just want to let you guys know that your feedback again is incredibly important to us in our ongoing efforts to bring you higher quality webinars and topics that are relevant to you. Please, if you can quickly scan this, I've got 10 ebooks to give away on the SAP Data Intelligence. Also, there's a couple of links that I'd like to make you aware. If you want to do a little bit more learning, there's the learninghub.sap.com site, as well as the Discovery Center. If you guys are interested in accessing out of the box missions for your use cases. And then there's another link where you can have access to a multitude of other webinar recordings as well. If you want to reach out to any of our presenters, so I've got everybody's contact information, with Yulia has typed into the chat. So if you want to reach out to any of us, including myself, our emails are available. Are there any questions, Yulia? I don't know.
No, I don't see any other questions.
Okay. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Friedbert. Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Sujit and Trinath. And thank you again, Seshu, for a great session. And most importantly, thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. Until next time, have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're located. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.